you just never know what's going to happen from one minute to the next. I mean, you can either be very depressed about that or look at it philosophically that you may be down at this moment and great adversity may be sitting upon you. But through that great adversity, if you look around, the road is opening up to something wonderful that will lead you in a path you would not have gone before. And ultimately, when you're drooling in a cup at the end of the day on the porch, to have had a full life, to have had a life that was filled with colors is ultimately what we want.
Imagine being cast as someone's mother, yet the person is only 10 years younger than you. It sounds absurd, it feels unfair, and for decades, many believed Sally Field's role in Forrest Gump was exactly that, proof of Hollywood's cruel age rules. But what if the truth is far more complicated and more revealing than the myth? In interviews over the past few years, Sally Field has finally stepped forward to set the record straight. What she reveals isn't just one more story of ageism. It's about perception, timing, craft, and about what it really means when people say she went from love interest to mothers too soon. This is the real story behind Sally Field Forrest Gump, and what she never quite confessed until now. Sally Field had already established herself as one of Hollywood's most beloved actresses by the early 1990s. 2 Oscars, major dramatic roles like Norma Ray and Places in the Heart, and a career that spanned television and film. Then came Punchline 1988, where she stars opposite Tom Hanks. In that film she plays a middle-aged housewife learning about comedy, and Hanks's character is a younger comedian. Their relationship is complex, character-driven, a mentorship, a flirtation, but not the traditional romantic lead. Sally Field is about 10 years older than Tom Hanks in real life, but in Punchline, that gap, that difference, is part of the story. Fast forward 6 years to 1994, Forrest Gump. The film becomes a cultural touchstone. Sally Field is cast as Mrs. Gump, Forrest's mother. The role takes her through decades from Forrest as child to grown man, through a spectrum of age and emotion, and suddenly many viewers, commentators and media outlets begin to frame her career pivot as a symbol of decline, of being too old for leading roles. In Forrest Gump, Sally Field delivers what many consider one of her most moving performances. Mrs. Gump is more than a mother figure. She is resilience, wisdom, unconditional love. She delivers lines that resonate, emotions that ground the film's flights, from its whimsical elements to its historical sweep. Her performance earned her critical praise, nominations and enduring audience affection. But embedded in that praise was a whisper: why was she playing Tom Hanks's mother, when she had been cast as his peer, or near peer, just years before? That question, repeated often, began to echo louder with time, and it fed into a larger narrative about Hollywood, gender and age. The idea that an actress's value begins to change at a certain age, that her transitions into maternal supportive secondary roles are inevitable. Field, for her part, continued to deliver performances of power and nuance, but the question always loomed: is this how Hollywood sees women once they're past something defined by youth or romantic interest? For years, critics and social media jumped on one statement: Sally Field went from playing Tom Hanks's love interest in Punchline to playing his mother in Forrest Gump. The implication: in just 6 years, Hollywood deemed her no longer viable for romantic or leading roles. But Sally Field has pushed back, and with some very precise clarifications. Here is what she actually said. In Punchline, Field's character is older than Hanks's character, about 10 years older. Her role is not a youthful romantic lead, opposite a similarly aged romantic partner. There's a different dynamic. In Forrest Gump, she plays Mrs. Gump over several life stages: young mother, older mother and elderly mother. It's not a sudden leap from love interest to mother in a single role. She ages with the character. Newsweek +1. Because of that journey through time in the film, with makeup and character arc, Field argues the love interest to mother idea is a simplified version of what really happened. She says that using her as an example of Hollywood ageism in the way many have isn't really true, or at least isn't the full story. However, she is clear that ageism is real. She acknowledges that women often have fewer roles as they age, that the romantic lead parts tend to go away, and that Hollywood still treats aging women differently, often based on appearance and assumptions about desirability. The industry is changing, but slowly and often only in response to audience demands. As with many myths in Hollywood, once narrative takes shape, it can be hard to uproot. After Forrest Gump, social media, commentators, memes, all pointed out the irony. Tom Hanks and Sally Field playing lovers in one film, then mother and son 6 years later. For many people that felt like an overt example of how women were used up once they cross a certain age threshold, but Field's clarifications complicate that picture. When she spoke with Newsweek in 2022, she said, "People always say the absolutely ridiculousness of playing Tom's sort of love interest and Tom's mother within, whatever it was, a 5-year span. But that's not true really. Then when we did Forrest Gump, I play a younger version of myself when he was a little boy. Then I age in the middle, then very much older. So it was a great opportunity to play with those 3 ages. So it's not a fair example." Public response was mixed. Some embraced her explanation, saying it shows nuance. Ageism myths sometimes get oversimplified. Others argued even if the timelines or ages make sense, the broader pattern remains. Older actresses often get relegated to mother roles, while older male actors still get romantic interest roles into their later years. Sally Field herself doesn't deny that pattern. So what does this confession, this clarification mean for Forrest Gump, for Sally Field's legacy, and for Hollywood more broadly? For Forrest Gump, the film remains iconic. Mrs. Gump endures as one of its emotional anchors. Sally Field's work, portraying love, loss, struggle, hope across time, gives the film depth. Knowing her own perspective on the casting adds richness to how the character is viewed. For Sally Field, her career has always been about range. She has embraced roles from TV sweetheart, Gidget, to dramatic lead Norma Ray, to strong supporting matriarch. Her willingness to speak out about ageism, not as mere complaint, but as observation, has added her voice to ongoing industry conversations. And when she says something is not quite what people think, even when it has taken decades, that tells you something about how narratives are shaped. For Hollywood and audiences, this story is a reminder of the importance of looking deeper. Simplified versions of events can lodge themselves in cultural memory. She played love interest, then in 6 years became mother, even when they obscure complexity. But the broader truth, that women in Hollywood are judged harshly by age, with diminished opportunities for romantic leads, for leading roles, simply because they are older, still stands. Field indicates that change is happening, in part because the audience is demanding it. And perhaps most importantly, this confession shows the value of giving agencies to the people who live these castings, not just the gossip and meme culture. Reality is more layered than it appears in headlines. After 30 years, Sally Field has finally helped correct the record, not with a scandal or an exposé, but with clarity. She didn't merely confess to a secret, she rejected a myth. She said yes, ageism exists, but the story being told about Forrest Gump and her role in it wasn't quite accurate. And in that correction, there is power. So next time you watch Mrs. Gump delivering her timeless lines, leaning on the porch, guiding her son, facing loss, love, time, know there's more than what's seen on screen. There's context. There's truth. There's an actress who has lived through decades of success, struggle, and public perception, and who has earned the right to define how her roles are understood. If you found this insight meaningful, hit like, subscribe, and ring that bell, because the stories behind the stories often change how we see the story itself. And if you have another movie or performance you think has been misremembered, tell me in the comments. Let's dig into the truth together. Until next time, keep watching closely and asking questions, because Hollywood history is always more than the legend.